we shall begin. Maybe we will have more friends coming later, but we could start. I believe most of the people in the room speak Italian. If maybe there's somebody that needs a translation that do not understand Italian in the room, everybody seems to be happy with Italian. But in any case, the workshop is being broadcast online, and that's also available with an English simultaneous translation. So we'll probably have more people joining us, and also one of the participants taking the floor today will join us later on. So today we are having this seminar focusing on strangers. You were a stranger and you welcomed me. These are the words of the Lord, the Gospel of Matthew. So the focus is on the world of migrants, standing in solidarity with the world of migrants. This morning we saw this text by Brother Alois talking about the human family. And we have said that today the world has turned into a smaller place. And this has both positive and negative consequences. One of the consequences is that in our countries, there are not just people from one origin, but there's lots of movement, and many, many different people are present. And many of these people leave the home country and they move to other countries for different reasons. Today, we want to focus on this issue, looking at positive and negative aspects, but especially we want to listen to concrete experience. Our workshop is not just about theory. We have 3, 4 persons bringing their experience with the world of migrant people. They will give a small presentation and then there will be an exchange, a conversation. Then we will turn to you if you have any comments, any questions. You can write them. That will be easier so that they will try to answer. And then our friends connected online through YouTube on the chat can send questions. These will be translated, and so there can be a conversation and go into deeper levels into this world of migrant people. So I'll stop, and Marina Lomuno has the floor, who will be the chairperson of this workshop. Thank you, Brother John. Hello, everyone. I am a journalist of the weekly magazine of the Diocese of Turin, and I will coordinate this meeting. And as Brother John said, the main objective is to try to focus on the world of migrant people and try to give all of you a sort of task to do. We will leave you with some small activities. We'll try to learn what we can do in our own choices, in our own job. So just starting, leaving Turin with an objective, a commitment that we can implement in our own reality. The title of the workshop is "Was a Stranger and You Welcomed Me." And since there's many people here, despite all the restrictions due to the pandemic, this means that this topic is very, very topical. And your generation, more than our generation's experience in school, in their job environment, in their voluntary activities, interculturality. Your schoolmates probably are from Africa, from Asia. That's very normal for you, but that was not the case for us. And since we are in Turin, one of the cities in Italy where migration was present heavily in the 50s, there were people coming from the countryside, in the Piedmont region and the Veneto region, and also from the south of Italy. There was a sort of invasion with many difficulties. Can you hear me at the back? No, there seems to be some audio problem. The microphone is on. Testing, testing. The audio quality of the transmission in Italian is quite poor. Please use the other microphone. Is this better? No, it doesn't work at all. This is much better now. So let's resume. I was saying that we are in Turin, one of the cities in Italy where migration was very much present in the 50s from the countryside of the Piedmont region, the Veneto region, and the south of Italy. Turin was invaded as a place where people could improve their work conditions, leaving behind poverty and trying to assure a better future for one's children, exactly as is the case today. I myself am the daughter of a family of migrant people. My father moved to Turin and could see signs on the wall saying we don't rent house to people from the south of Italy. And he managed to have one, to rent one, because my aunt had a boyfriend that was from Turin. And so the landlady could get a reference and she was open to rent the flat to him. And today in Turin, these stories are still present in the periphery. In the past, people from the south would find a dwelling, and now it's migrant people looking for a house there. And as Mary and Joseph say here, there's no place for you, there's no room for you, or they speculate, Italian people may speculate on rentals, and there's a very difficult situation around. So what does it mean today to implement the evangelical dictate saying, I was a stranger and you welcomed me? What does it mean to get rid of racism and prejudice, especially for our generation? And we still have traces of racism and prejudice, but we should make room to peace and justice. How many of you were present last night in the prayer? I really liked the gesture from last night. There was the icon that Federico's wife designed, Alice. So there were these two pieces of wood, this crucifix, this cross made of the wood from the boats from Lampedusa. That was a very significant gesture. Our colleague went to Lampedusa, came back for Christmas, and came with those pieces of wood. And these are the new crosses of today. And last night, there was a lot of focus on welcoming. So our workshop is really very much linked to the prayer from last night. So two more quotations. The first is by Pope Francis II. Sorry, I made a mistake. It's Pope Francis. And he says, over the course of the centuries, we have witnessed in this regard about migration great expressions of solidarity, although there has been no lack of social tension. Today, the context of the economic crisis unfortunately fosters the emergence of attitudes of enclosure and not of welcome. In some parts of the world, walls and barriers are being raised. At times, it seems that the silent work of so many men and women who, in various ways, do all they can do to help and assist the refugees and migrants is obscured by the clamor of others who give voice to an instinctive selfishness. However, closure is not a solution, but instead it ends up fostering criminal trafficking. The only way to a solution is that of solidarity, solidarity with the migrant, solidarity with the foreigner. This is what Pope Francis said. And he said this in 2016. in his encyclical, then Fratelli Tutti, made it very much explicit, saying that we are all on the same boat. And then, since we are here at the Peace Pilgrimage of Thésée, I would like to quote Brother Eger before introducing our guest, who says, "The Church, the gathering of those who love Christ, is called to let herself be transformed by mercy. When the Church listens, heals, and reconciles, it becomes what it is at its most luminous, a communion of love, of compassion, of comfort, a clear reflection of the risen Christ, never distant, never on the defensive, freed from all harshness. It can cause the humble trusting of faith to radiate right down into our human hearts." Brother Roger and Pope Francis. As I said at the beginning, the main aim of this workshop is about what we can do ourselves. And here there are three friends with us who already have an answer on what we can do to welcome. The first one is quite significant, I believe, because this is an ecumenical gathering. And the first experience is Maria Grazia Fais from the Waldensian Diaconate. And she's an operator of the Humanitarian Corridor Project. How many of you know about the humanitarian corridors? Well, that's an international experience that is well known. So I would like to ask Maria Grazia to tell us about the humanitarian corridors in Turin and why she decided to make this choice and commit herself in this experience of welcome. Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, everyone. It is really great to see so many young people in the audience. That means there's still hope. I would like to connect to Marina's words and rephrase them, saying that everyone and each of us can do something and make a difference. I made this choice to work in this field. I have a degree in pedagogy with socio-anthropological specialization, so I'm a professional in this field. But my choice has also been due to the fact that I do not feel that I deserve all what I have since I was born where I was born. So I feel that I have the duty to share with those who were not as lucky as I was to be born in other places where there are other rules, other situations, other views. So I'll try to give back something of what I have received. So this is the introduction, and this is an implicit answer to Marina's question. I work in the Humanitarian Corridor Project in the Waldensian Diaconate, and they are managed by the Waldensian Diaconate in Turin. We are in the northern area of Turin, the Barriera di Milano neighborhood, which is a complicated neighborhood. And we're also present in small towns around Turin, in Valpellice, and other places. The humanitarian corridors are the safe and legal ways through which migrant people can get to Italy. They are the result of an international agreement between the Interior and the Foreign Ministries, who awarded humanitarian visas to these people that can arrive, avoiding taking these boats and risking to lose their life in crossing the Mediterranean. And so this way we avoid fostering human trafficking and also the activities of fraudulent subjects who are just interested in making profit out of human lives. So these people can get to Italy safely through flights that are safe, 100% safe. These people are selected through a network. I'm not going to give you the details now, but of course we have representatives of the authorities that are involved in the Humanitarian Corridor Project. like Caritas and the Waldensian community, etc. So there is a contact with these people, families, individuals. These can be individuals or single parent families, and also more numerous families. And in Turin we have a big family of 9 children. So these people are selected on the basis of their needs. There are people who are also very ill, and through these corridors, especially, these people help to come to Italy to receive medical assistance. And so there is a way to there's a way to save them and to give them assistance. And there are other people who are in a very delicate condition, very difficult condition for their survival. So Italy offered them the possibility to recover and to have a better life, still with many difficulties. But it's not easy for them to accept and to move and to leave one's home. And in all this, we as operators work in this reality. And so these people arrive, we do the health welcome and the legal assistance. There is an asylum application, people coming from Syria, for example. Some people moved to Lebanon. And now there's these corridors that have been opened through Lebanon, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia, and other parts of Africa. These are very different contexts, but the common factor is that there are very fragile individuals that have been made fragile. They're not fragile by nature, they've been made fragile because they live to the limits of certain situations. These people arrive and they bring with them a whole system, a whole burden of suffering, which is difficult for them sometimes to process, and they're not even aware of that sometimes. They have problems with post-traumatic traumas, and maybe you don't know about these problems resulting from this condition, but these are very, very frequent with these subjects. And so we try to explain what good practices can be, and even if it can be easier for them once they arrive, their life is still difficult and still complex, both for them and for us working with them. So we don't have to take it for granted that when you help someone, it's all solved, it's all happy. Sometimes it's not easy to provide this help and to feel closeness and to make it understandable, because sometimes it's not easy to understand. These are not things that are of immediate understanding. And this is a very, very complex situation, and we try to work to give a respectful kind of help to these people that are arriving. Thank you, and we will have then 2 more people presenting their experience, and I'm sure that there will be many questions. Maybe Maria Grazia can tell us some concrete story. What I wanted to emphasize about the humanitarian corridor experience is that it is not just a church-related experience. There's Caritas, there's other associations, but this experience is really ecumenical, and there are also atheists taking part in these humanitarian corridors, because there's Muslim people that are welcomed and people of other religions, of other credos. So this is welcoming in its fullest sense, par excellence. So that's what I really wanted to emphasize in this respect, and that's why we decided to give Maria Grazia the floor first, because the experience of humanitarian corridors is really part of the spirit of Taizé, that is the spirit of welcoming everyone. Thank you very much. Now, from ecumenical experience, we move to now a community experience. We have our friend Anna Rappelli here with us, who's a school teacher. She's been a school teacher for many years, then she retired and decided to use her time which is not to be taken for granted, but to use it for an experience of the church. And our Archbishop, Monsignor Nosilia, based on the Pope's call about the issue of migration, when this issue was very serious, and there was this call to open the doors of the dioceses, to open the doors, and her parish decided to take up this call, to answer this call, and to commit herself to welcome a group of foreign people. And now Anna will tell us about that. Thank you very much. I am really, really happy to be here today. They could be your students, indeed. I really, really enjoy staying with young people. As Don Bosco used to say, it is beautiful to stay with young people because you are the future, you are hope. And we hope that our experience can help you understand something. As Maria Grazia said, there is preparation, competence, but even goodwill is enough. This is my experience. I like staying with young people, and I'm going to talk about a group of migrant people, young migrant people, and I can answer your questions. And there's also an experience of the pastoral office for migrants in Turin and other voluntary experience. This is an attempt to give some hope, all in all. My parish is in the Santa Rita neighborhood in the Natale del Signore area, and it started in 2016. Marina mentioned the call by the Pope to welcome some migrant people that was also redirected by our Archbishop, and with Father Piero and the Deputy Father Donald Piero said yes, and 3 young people had this idea of welcoming in our parish. They're not with us because they're now 25, 26 years old. They finished their education and they work. So I'm here on behalf of this group. We are about 20 people from 20 to 84 years old, so it's a very heterogeneous group with reference to life experience and professional experience. And the Pastoral Office for Migrants sent us 8 young people so far, aged between 24 and 32 years. They come from Africa and Pakistan, in particular from Ghana, the Ivory Coast, and Nigeria. As I said, there are 8 people, and 5 of them are autonomous, meaning that they found a job, they have a contract, and so they can afford rent, and they have a house. And one of them got married, and they have a child, a little girl, and now in January there will be they will have a new baby. The other 3 are not yet autonomous. They are staying at a flat made available by a member of our parish, so the rental is not too high, and they are there, they are finishing their studies and they're looking for a job. So it's a very small experience with respect to the needs and to the number of migrant people that could be helped. But for us, volunteers, is really a great experience. It's beautiful. It's opening up to the other. There is exchange, there is relationship, there is love, because they are like our nephews, our children, they're part of our life. I can say that, of course, there are negative aspects. For example, when one has to look for a job, it is difficult for Italian people, and it's all the more difficult for foreign people. It's difficult to find a home, to find a flat. It must be, let's be honest, when the color skin is not like my color, it's difficult. You know, in your schools, now you are used to having many different people, many different cultures, and interculturality is now commonplace, but not for my generation. This is a very difficult aspect. But for the rest, welcoming foreign people now is much easier, and much easier than the humanitarian corridors experience. We deal with documents, looking for a home, do the shopping, looking for a GP. So we deal with all the things in everyone's life. And, I would like, to refer to Pope Francis' words, knowing to understand. So if you know about a certain reality, if you realize the needs of someone who is close to you, then you will understand that all these barriers, all these walls that are being raised are senseless, are meaningless. And listening is important. You don't want to ask anything to these migrant people. Their stories are stories of suffering, because nobody wants to be a migrant person. Maybe a traveler, of course, loves traveling, but a migrant person, no, because one leaves his or her land with pain. There might be a conflict, there might be hunger, and in those boats you could be one of us. So why should we turn our back? No. So we have to know, to listen, and to collaborate with goodwill. As I said, our experience can be replicated by anyone just with some goodwill, because collaborating can help you build something, and it's much more what you get than what you give. You help these people in simple, necessary things, but you really realize that if we want a civilization of brotherhood, we have to help each other as in a family. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Anna. We had an international experience as the one by Maria Grazia, and then a small community experience, the one by Anna. We now move on to another experience which is vocational. I don't know whether Federico agrees, but it is a professional choice, and choice as a couple, Alice and Federico. They decided to do this as a couple. This is to set up Casa Island, Home Island, and the name is evocative by itself. Island is the name of the little kid who was found dead on the shore in Turkey, in Bodrum, with a red t-shirt while escaping from conflict. So Federico and Alice decided to call this home Casa Island, to dedicate it to this little kid, so that nobody may forget about it. Federico is a physician, and Alice is an iconographer, and she is, as I said before, the one who painted the beautiful icon used in the last night prayer, and made this decision as a couple. When we were thinking about how to prepare this workshop, this meeting, we thought that we really wanted to emphasize this. This has been a choice of a couple. It's a very important choice, a vocational choice, as a family choice. The people in the audience are young, and maybe you are making choices in terms of your boyfriend or girlfriend, and as a couple, and so you will be very pleased to hear from this experience. Hello everyone. I'll try to keep the microphone close to the mouth, because with the face mask it's quite hard. I'm here on behalf also of my wife, who is not here, but here with us there is Aller, who is sitting next to Luca, and Aller is one of the children living with us in Casa Island. The Casa Island is located in Piobesi Torinese. There is a website too, so if you want to take a look, we've set up this website to be known online too, and it's quite well designed. We didn't design the website, but it's quite good.
Ok, meglio. Spero abbiate sentito tutto finora, o più o meno, ok.
Now this
Dico
microphone
subito una
works
cosa,
much better. I
prima
hope you
di
could listen to what I've
rispondere alla
said so far.
sollecitazione di
Before
Marina sull'aspetto vocazionale,
answering Marina's
per non dare l'impressione di essere però una
question,
coppia isolata dal mondo, perché la
I
scelta
would
di
like
coppia,
to
marito e
say
moglie,
that
ma ci
we are not
ritroviamo
just
completamente in quello
isolated.
che
I mean, this
diceva
choice is a choice
la
that
Daniela
we
della
made as a
Compagnia
couple,
Valdese.
but this is
Grazie.
very much in line with what Maria Grazia
Perché
said
anche noi,
from the
in questo
Waldensian
momento
Diaconess,
ospitiamo dei ragazzi
because today
sono arrivati
we are
tramite dei corridoi
hosting
umanitari,
children that
di cui
arrive
posso
through
poi dire
humanitarian
qualcosa dopo,
corridors, and I
perché
may
sono
say something about
particolari
it
quanto riguarda
later
i
on.
minori, i minorenni,
It's a quite a special
stranieri non
situation because
accompagnati,
these are
quindi senza
unaccompanied,
famiglia,
underaged
ed è anche
foreign
il fatto
people,
che
so
siamo
without
una
a family.
comunità,
And
una
also
comunità
consider
parrocchiale
that we are
senz'altro,
part of a
a
community. There is a
Piovesi, ma anche
parish in
all'interno della
Piobesi,
diocesi
but also
collaboriamo
within the
con l'ufficio
diocese we
migranti,
collaborate
anzi
with
l'ufficio migranti ci dà una
the
bella mano,
Office for
e
Migrants, and
anche
the
una
office
realtà che
helps us
forse
a lot.
penso qualche di Torino conosce,
And
che è
the
l'ASAI,
people from Turin may
con
also
cui
know about
portano avanti
Lazai,
questo
with
progetto
which
e questa
we
iniziativa di
also
Casa
work
Island.
for this project of
Quindi
Casa Island.
l'aspetto della coppia sì, ma non coppia
So there is
isolata.
indeed this
Detto ciò, io e mia moglie
dimension
siamo
of
sposati
the
dal
couple,
2004
but it's not an
e
isolated couple. My wife
nel
and I have been married
2015
since 2004,
siamo
and in
stati toccati in prima persona
2015
dall'appello del Papa
we
tedesco
were impressed
per
by the call by the
l'accoglienza.
Pope and
Quindi,
the Archbishop
ripeto,
about welcoming.
questo momento
So
che è stato già
really,
ricordato, questo anno
it's
particolare
very
che ha
special for
portato a
me
fare scelte
to
importanti
mention
di
this
numerose persone.
choice again.
In quel
And
momento
this
noi non
call
avevamo
really
figli,
triggered
tuttora
many,
non
many
abbiamo
important
figli nostri
choices
naturali,
in other
non sono
people.
arrivati.
We do not
Non
have
ci siamo disperati
natural
più di
children of
tanto,
our
abbiamo fatto
own. We are not
qualche
desperate at
indagine,
all.
però
We took
senza
some tests and
come
to
dire, proseguire
try to understand what was the
oltre. Abbiamo
situation,
un po'
but without
accettato
getting crazy about it.
questa condizione.
And
In
we
realtà,
accepted this condition
eravamo già
without
abbastanza
problems.
impegnati con altri
We
ragazzi,
were
sia mia
pretty
moglie che
busy
Mariano,
already
per
with
l'esperienza dello
other
scoutismo
children,
come
since
servizio, per
we
cui
also used
tanti
to work in
ragazzi li
the
abbiamo incrociati
scouting
e li incrociamo
groups,
ancora.
and we see a
In
lot
quel
of
momento avevamo
young
però di
people,
fatto uno spazio in
and
casa
we
in
still
più,
see
perché c'era una
a lot of
camera
young
vuota,
people,
e
and
allora
we've had
nel
an
2015
extra
abbiamo
room in
risposto
our
a questo
home.
appello
So in
dicendo
2015 we
apriamo la
decided
porta
to
di casa,
meet the
accogliamo
call
una
by the
persona che ha
Pope and
bisogno.
open the door of our
E così
home
la nostra
and to
disponibilità
welcome
l'abbiamo
a needy
consegnata nelle
person.
mani della pastorale migranti della
We
diocesi di
collaborated
Torino.
with the pastoral office of the
Come
Turin
capita a
Diocese,
volte
and
questa disponibilità ci è stata un po'
this
restituita con una
availability
sfida, perché
came
non
then with a
accogliete un
challenge,
minore
because
straniero
we
non
were asked,
accompagnato.
why don't you
I
welcome
ragazzi minori stranieri non accompagnati
an unaccompanied
sono accolti
underage
prevalentemente in
migrant
comunità,
person? These
ma esiste la
children
possibilità
normally
Esiste la
These
possibilità
children
anche
normally
dell'affido
are
familiare,
sent
e
to
quindi
institutions,
attraverso
to
enti
community
pubblici a Torino
institutions,
abbiamo
but it's
Casa
also
Affidi, che
possible
si
to
occupa molto
have
bene degli
foster
affidi
families.
di
There is a
famiglie di
foster
minori
family
adibiti o
office in the
compresi anche minori
municipality of
stranieri non
Turin that work
accompagnati.
very well also in
E allora
case
abbiamo
of
detto sì a
unaccompanied
questa sfida.
underage
E
migrant
quindi
people.
nel
So we said yes to this
2016
challenge,
ci
and
siamo
in
preparati ed è poi
2016
arrivato a
we
casa
prepared
nostra un
ourselves,
bel giorno
and one
Ibli,
nice day
ragazzo albanese,
Ibli
quindi non stiamo
arrived, an
parlando
Albanian
di
young
terre
boy,
lontane,
so we're not talking
ma che
about
era stato
far
appena sbattuto
distant
fuori da una
lands,
comunità per
but
minori
he
di
had
Torino, perché aveva una
been
rissa con un compagno di
sent
comunità.
away
Ed era l'ennesimo
from
episodio di
a
una serie
community
di
institution in Turin
problemi,
because he
quindi era
had
abbastanza-
conflict, he had a fight with another guy in the same community, and so he was sent away and he was living
Capite
in the
bene
street.
che non è stato la prova, prima si
As
parlava di
you
prova, nella
can
preghiera di
understand,
stasera si è parlato
in
di
the
grazia,
prayer,
accoglienza e prova.
we
Per noi è
talked
stata la
about
prova
grace,
di accogliere un
mercy,
ragazzo
and
che ci poneva delle inquietudini.
taking the challenge, and this was a big
Non ci
challenge
faceva
for us
paura,
because
però sicuramente
we weren't
era una
afraid of
storia
this young boy, but it was a complicated story,
siamo
and
affidati,
you know, we
a
questioned
noi
ourselves a
stessi,
lot.
senz'altro,
So we
e
embraced
poi ci siamo affidati
the
anche
word
alle
of God,
persone che,
and we also
diciamo,
followed
grazie a
those
Dio
persons
abbiamo
that we always say,
incontrato
thanks to
lungo la
God,
strada,
had
erano
the
già con noi, che ci hanno
opportunity to
aiutato.
meet along the
E
way,
questa
and
esperienza
they
di
helped us
accoglienza
a
e di
lot.
affido
And
è
this
andata
experience
molto
of
bene.
welcoming
Quindi
and
ha
foster
trovato a
family
casa nostra
was very successful. Ivli in our home could find a place where he could flourish again. So he restarted, he finished school, he got his driving license, and we helped him finding a home. Before, this was mentioned as one of the biggest problems, being an Albanian person without anyone referencing you when you look for a home. It can be really difficult even if your skin is not dark. And so, on the basis of this positive experience, we decided to give our availability again, and now Amra has arrived, an underage Egyptian boy who arrived to Italy by boat when he was 12 years old. He traveled from Sicily to the north by himself. He stayed at a family, but then this family could not take care of him anymore. So he arrived to our family, he continued to study, and now he got 18. And then Ziad arrived, another Egyptian boy, and then Alex and Ervin, the two Albanian guys, and then the lockdown arrived, so we had to close as a community family ourselves for quite a long time. We got COVID, and we had extra challenges as everybody else in this period, and luckily and thanks to the mercy of God, managed to go through all this. And other people arrived. Some of them stayed for a short time. For example, two Afghan guys that were found on a truck traveling through Turin. They wanted to get to France and to Belgium. They were 14 and 15 years old people, and Cher and Ali, two of them, stayed with us for a month, but then they wanted to continue to travel, and one of them wanted to go to France and the other one wanted to go to Belgium. And now, going back to the humanitarian corridor point, we are part of the Pagelle in Tasca project, and we have welcomed a guy from Sudan, and this guy went through very difficult areas like Libya, and then they were staying in Libya in a refugee camp looking for a future. In particular, they had difficulties being helped because there were humanitarian corridors for families, but for underage, unaccompanied migrant people, there were no corridor. So there was a project that luckily could be set up despite all the difficulties, and this was possible thanks to the association Migrantes of CEI, and then the Comunità di Sant'Egidio and Intersos and UNHCR. All these bodies managed to create this project, and the first 5 kids arrived from Sudan last October to Turin, and they were all settled into families because this project envisages that the welcoming is implemented through foster family schemes. So in addition to Alice, there are these 5 more kids. One is being quarantined, one is here with me, 2 are with my wife. He's not just an iconographer, but she manages 2 homes in the mountains in Clavier, because it's interesting as a name, as a place, because that's in the border between France and Italy, and there are many migrant people trying to cross the border there with a lot of danger. And then there is also Amra, who's also isolated because has recently come back from Egypt, couldn't see her family. And one last point, a beautiful thing that I wanted to mention. There were many challenges, of course, but a very, very nice thing that we could do over the years with some kids, the ones that grew up like Nigli, Amra, and the second that came to live with us, is to be able to go and see and know their family of origin. With Igli, we went to Albania, to Herat, in the middle of Albania, to meet their family, and with Amr, we went to Egypt in May for the first time to meet Amra's family at Libya. which is a small town near El Cairo. This has been really, really important because we had the chance to be welcomed ourselves. So we welcomed them and we always felt welcomed by themselves. Welcome is always a mixture of giving and receiving. You know, sometimes we mention the difficulties in organizing this sort of support, but we really had the chance to experience the welcoming of their families in their countries of origin. Thank you, Federico. We've had the ecumenical experience, the community experience, and the vocational experience. But not just that. I don't know whether Maria Grazia, Anna, and Federico agree with me, but I believe that a common thread that we can find in these three types of experience is that we cannot do anything by ourselves. All these experiences are community experiences. I was talking to Maria Grazia before about personal experience. My husband and I adopted a little girl, and when she arrived, we called all our friends and we said, "Can you give us a hand? Because we can't do it by ourselves." And I believe this is applicable to every kind of experience. We can decide to welcome and to be open, but all alone, we cannot do anything. And so I think that this is a common factor present in all these three experiences. Now, it will be really, really nice to have a dialogue with you. So if you want, you can write your question on a piece of paper and also state for whom the question is, and then I will pass it on to the three friends here. And then if there's other questions that arrive through the chat on the online broadcast of this workshop, please feel free to send them through. Here we have our first questions. We have friends from Germany, from France, from Spain, from Kenya, from South Africa, from the UK, and we want to say hello to these friends. So let's give them a round of applause to all the people connected. Here is a question that may be asked to the three of you. We've listened to some experiences where welcoming migrant people has been possible thanks to the presence of a community. In which way can the community be a power against the poverty? Would you like to start, Maria Grazia? Well, this is a huge question. Well, this is the question of all questions. The point is that everyone has to do their part. There is no supra system that can provide one single answer to this big question, which is a fundamental question. So everyone has to find the light inside themselves and see what their testimony can be and their role can be within a system, but that should start from the individual dimension that then will meet all the rest. So having an idea of what one is, what one can give, and then connect to other individual dimensions to be able to operate as a team. And then about poverty, as I said before, we are very lucky that we were born here and we are part of this system and of this culture, and we find it quite strange that people arriving from other places do not know what we know. But if we just stop for a moment and stop focusing on our Western identity, let's say, we'll find that our options, our desires are quite similar to the desires of other people, just mediated through different culture. Our idea of poverty can be of one kind, but there can be other kinds of ideas about poverty too. Thank you. Federico, would you like to add anything? I believe that everyone should play their part. That's the objective, of course. That's not always the case, but that's the objective, and then all together we can try and build something. And everybody should start with a personal choice. The possibility to build something together is there because we are many, there are different stories. We also share some common features. The Christian community is one of them, and this is the most important for us probably. And there's also the beauty of, making some efforts and to get a result. So we have to continue and be committed and work in this direction. We should also pay attention and not do everything outside of our home and then be indifferent in our own home, or even vice versa. In my local individual reality, maybe I do a lot of things and then I cannot communicate what I do outside. And so it's important to show how beautiful our commitment can be. It's not an individual journey by itself. It is partly individual, but partly also together with other people. Well, I agree with all of you, and I just add one point. There's the need for everything and for everyone. The community can help in many ways, in many forms, praying and with friendship and meeting, and also very practical things. Money is needed for these projects. So maybe some people look at us and say, look, I can't do really anything, but I can support you financially. Maybe there is a plumber that can help, or maybe someone can teach the Italian language. This is fundamental, because if I'm in a country and I cannot express myself, of course people have a dignity of their own, but if one cannot express himself or herself, then they close themselves. It's difficult. Or maybe I can teach you how to buy things in a certain place and how to cook things. It's life. I think that the community should try and find some passion. I don't know whether we are able to fire up other people's hearts, but the point is to take care of the people that are close to us. That's very, very important. Community is fundamental. You must not isolate. Nobody can save themselves by themselves. Thank you very much, and there's more questions coming. Can you tell us about one positive aspect and then another aspect that you should pay attention when you welcome somebody in a room of your own home? So can you give us a positive aspect and something you must be careful about? Well, the positive aspect is what we may all expect. That is, the space should be spacious and with light and clean. I think that there's some common standards that we can all share, and we feel welcome when we find them. So that's a starting point. And then what should be careful about? Well, there might be some difficulties. There might be some difficulties if you characterize the room too much. Let's say that the person coming may have different traditions, may have a different religion. We also welcome Muslim kids, and of course there should be some mutual respect in meeting these people. I will give you an example just to make it clearer. Let's say a Muslim kid arriving to your home may be happy to find a carpet to do their prayer. If they find a cross, they will ask you what it is, but there may be dialogue about it, but then not prayer. Well, I may add something. It is fundamental to start off a principle. That is, the person in front of us may not have the same external forms. They may have desires, human desires. And the most important thing that I always consider is respect. Respect for the other. And I can respect the other if I know them. So respecting and listening are two key factors in welcoming. First, I have to listen with a lot of humility. We have to be really, really humble. We do not have the truth at all. We are here and we can offer with the terms that we can, but we cannot really think that we're always right. We simply live in a different context. So listening to the other and respecting the other are really key factors, I believe, are the two key words of welcome. Indeed, respect. And I believe that offering a warm place, a bed, a meal after years of traveling and after years of terrible difficulties before getting to Libya and then going through Libya. And as Federico and Maria Grazia said, I believe that respect is the key word, and especially silence. Do not ask, just stay close, give them warmth, and then opening up our arms to give at long last some hope. We don't have pre-made recipes, but this is a life that is going to restart with the hope that it's for good. I may add something. There is a game, let's call it a game, a role game, that I always mention to understand the person who arrives. I say, imagine you lose everything. You lose everything you are, everything you have, your games, your phone, your clothes. Think that many of these people that arrive only have with them the clothes that they have on. So you may even think of losing their social role. You don't have a degree, you don't have a family, you don't have parents, you don't have brothers or sisters. You lose all your social references. So try and do this sort of role play. It's really, really incredible finding yourself in the shoes of the other person with another identity, in another place where everything must be reconstructed. As our colleagues said, it's really, really important to give them support with some form of testimony or some form of experience that are close to them. Another question. How can you get to community or communal choice of accepting somebody in your own family? What is the fundamental factor there? For us, as a couple, it was a choice as a couple, and this choice was renewed every day. We just didn't make this choice once. So it's fundamental to start off your own family. Let's say you may live with your parents, and of course this choice should be shared with your parents, and there may be difficulties there, and we know that luckily also we may say that children do not always think in line with the parents, and sometimes we go against our parents' way of thinking. But if it is a choice of the family, it has to be shared by everyone. So as for us, it was a choice as a couple, and for you, it could be a choice as a brother and sister, or children and parents. And as I said multiple times, but I'm going to repeat it once more, and Marina also mentioned that with her particular testimony, we look for support, for help from friends in the beautiful relationships that we have, and also from the community in its wider sense. Maria Grazia and Anna too may answer. There is personal choices for them, but in their personal choice there is also the involvement of people next to them. Well, yes, in fact, we have to make a distinction. In my case, I don't bring people home. I manage that as a profession, and in the community it's a bit different, because one's system of reference can be really, really shocked in a way. But even if I do it as a job, I bring my job at home many times. I just don't forget about it. Overnight, I may keep thinking about solutions for a certain person, for their home. So we keep focused on that. But in the case of Federico, well, everything is sort of called into question. The balance is broken, and one has to rebuild it, and it takes time to recover and to get back to a good balance as before. And sharing is really necessary, sharing with the other person, the person next to us, and having the same kind of sight, looking towards the same direction. We might have different tastes in the details, but the general lookout should be the same. Certainly, we want to share with the people with whom we live. And my husband shares with me these choices, and he also supports some of these kids. So we do definitely look towards the same direction. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the questions, because we are happy to see that we stimulated interest and debate. One more question for Maria Grazia. Thank you for your experience. I believe that humanitarian corridors are the only solution for the migrant crisis. However, many Italian people claim that they don't want to help unknown people, and they themselves need help. So is it possible then to be altruistic and to be generous at a time when maybe people feel themselves in need? Well, yes, this is another big question of all questions, and this is the big contradiction that we live in our time. We can't really cross our own individual reality, and we are very afraid of what is out there. As Italian people, we feel this a lot. It is complicated, and it is normal to be afraid. Those people coming from outside represent all our fears. And instead of looking at ourselves, looking at our inside, it's easier to point to the other people and say that they are guilty for all our fears. But the reality is that it is difficult, and it takes a lot of effort to open up and make steps towards the other. So what is the suggestion? The spoken suggestion doesn't work. We need examples. That's why I said that everyone has to do their part, because it is only by giving examples that you can involve those next to you, even if they don't think in your same way. You know, you have the same situation with in the relationship between parents and children. It's useless to say something if you don't give an example. Then there is another question. Often we feel fear when we welcome strangers. A question for the three of you. Do you have any experience on how this fear can be solved or can be decreased in some way? The microphone is not working. Now it's working. Well, feeling fear is normal. It's natural. This fear is what saves us from dangerous situations. So it's okay to feel fear. But we can overcome fear by knowing more. We all experienced fear of an empty, dark room. We don't know what's there. And so we start exploring the space. And once you've explored the whole room and you turn the light on, you see, oh, look, there's nothing that can hurt me. And so it's like being in a dark room where things are not very well defined, and we have to make one step forward, one step backward, listen, think about, and getting accustomed to the others and see how they conceive life and they experience life. That's one way to overcome fear. I also would like to understand, to emphasize the idea of knowing. When you meet someone, when you meet, let's say, a colored person, it could be even a foreign person from a different origin and not just from Africa, try and get in touch with them, try to talk to them, try to understand. Well, maybe they will send you away, because sometimes there are people don't feel they want to talk to anyone. But in meeting someone, it can be very helpful to overcome prejudices, and we all know this in theory, but let's try and do it. Let's try and practice this this meeting. There are, as in many exercises, there are cases that will be successful and other cases that won't be successful, but we have to go on and to continue and try to help our friends and the people around us to overcome their fear. In our experience, we talked about Casa Island, and we welcome people and visit our home. Even, in our own family, our relatives and other people could come and see us, and so that's our experience is not an impossible one. Then it doesn't mean that all the people will make the same choice, but still they will change the way they see situations and people, and then they think in a different way. I always say looking at the people in the eyes, not turning our back, and remembering that there are needs and trying to find answers, but looking at the people in the eyes. Then a philosophical question. Why is it difficult to go beyond social barriers? What are the measures, the tools that you adopt to go beyond the social barriers? Well, I can give you a personal answer, but I believe that everyone has their own experience, their own character. Personally, I always try to do things, and I try to go beyond the social barriers, just giving it a go, giving it a try. Maybe I sometimes say the wrong thing, but I don't stop before just because I fear of maybe saying the wrong thing. That's my way, my style. Also, my wife is like me. We are pretty similar in this respect. So, social barriers, everyday barriers that we meet every day, we try to overcome them, even if, sometimes sometimes we find these barriers all of a sudden, but we just try, we just give it a go. Well, my way of dealing with this can be reconnected to what my colleague said in being direct. Being direct without being presumptuous in saying that we have the solution. No, we have to be honest and be open and say things, without being too presumptuous and saying that we hold the truth. I always underline this because when we work with people that are extremely fragile, the risk is that they see us as the subject that can solve all their problems, but at the same time we may turn really complicated for them, and they may even feel that we're not so nice eventually. So I try to keep it on an equal footing and being direct. Well, I agree to maybe I make a lot of mistakes, but I try to do things. Social barriers are all around us. In our parish, not all the people share these choices. We have to be honest. When I speak, some people complain that I always repeat the same things. And what about our relatives? Some of our relatives are interested, but some others would ask, but why do you do that? There's so many Italian people that are in need. Well, you have to bet and to do. I think that the important thing is to do things. Well, there's lots of questions, but we only have about 15 minutes before the end of our workshop. And I try to summarize all the questions that have arrived. The first one is quite interesting because it focuses on the objective of our workshop, that is living with a task, with a duty. So the question is, how can young people be involved today? What can we do with them? And then there is another personal question. Have you ever had any doubts about your choices, about the journey that you started, and maybe you wanted to give it up? Well, it's quite hard. It's not easy, but we have to think that it's not the other that has to change. It is my way of seeing things. If I can change my way of seeing things, I also learn how to look at the other's fragility. Then there's maybe emergency situations that are actually quite frequent because there's health situations that stretches to the limit. So then we have to stop for a moment and think about our objective. And as somebody said, there are obstacles that arise when we lose sight of our objective. But when our objective is to provide somebody with our support, then the tiredness and the effort that is implied can be reframed and can be changed. Well, Maria Grazia has this professional experience. Alice and Federico has made this family choice. I have to say that I have the privilege of being a retired person. So I don't have these challenges, but I have no doubt I want to continue to commit myself in this. As long as I have the strength and the time to do it, if there's somebody that needs to be accompanied to a doctor's appointment, let's say, I can still drive, and I'm willing and open to support these people. And there was the other question, how can young people be involved? Well, how can you be involved, young people? You have to be involved, period. So participate. If you don't participate, we won't have new things. New things come with young people. I am 44 years old. They are younger than me. Well, I'm 57. So you well understand that, that's life. I mean, it's normal that after a while persons get a little bit tired. It's difficult to renew one's choices and to continue with the experience, but novelty only comes with young people. And many things can be renewed and changed because there's a new energy. And if you don't bring new energy that you have as young people, it's really difficult. That can be at the level of the parish, of the constituency, of the municipality, or your circle of friends, starting with your primary contacts that we all have. So do it, please. Yes, voluntary work can be a way, something you're interested in, something you feel you have a sort of feeling, just a few hours a week. That's already enough to have a different way of things, and to have a different experience. Then if you don't like, you can always change organization. You can always try and find other associations. You can try and error method can work, but you need to be very pragmatic and do things. Then there's a question for Federico and one question for Maria Grazia. For Federico, what difficulties did you have in welcoming kids with difficult past, and if you can tell us about a funny moment with them? And Maria Grazia, how are humanitarian corridors started? Well, difficult times come at the beginning normally when we start establishing a relationship. We mentioned respect, and of course we have to have passion and be humble in building a relationship by listening, by encountering, that can start giving help to that kid that is now part of your family, but with the right time. Sometimes it takes a longer time, and not everybody follows the same time schedule, let's say, because every kid has their own story. We don't have a fixed pattern, not just because a kid comes from Egypt and one from Albania and one from Sudan. It's not just about the origin, but it's also about people's characters. The kids from Sudan that has just arrived, Brak and Al-Ram, have two completely different characters, and we are in difficulty sometimes because we tend to see everything on the same level. They have the same skin color. They have the same difficulties with the Italian language. One is maybe thinner and one is maybe fatter. But no, they are different. They have different stories, different families, and so on and so forth. So that's the beauty of discovering, but it's also a difficulty in respecting people's time. This is certainly the challenge number one for us. Well, you asked about a funny moment, a nice moment, and these kids I mentioned before, when they saw snow for the first time. They arrived in Turin in October, in fall, so the climate was already different. So humanitarian corridor is beautiful, but the point is that you take a flight and you find yourself immediately in a different reality, in a different setting. And so there's small and big changes that may be difficult to accept. For example, climatic changes. And then it snowed. There was quite a heavy snowfall in December, and so both in Piobesi and then in the mountains. They could see lots of snow, and that was the first time that they could see snow. And this experience was not traumatic. Luckily, it was only positive, and especially thanks to plane and sliding. Now we'll see whether we can try and ski with them. Maybe we can also try this. These are all desires that we may have, and then we just try and do things. Some things you may like, some things you may not like so much, other things, but we try to do things. So how are humanitarian corridors activated? The first protocol was signed in December 2015. As I said before, there was a request by the Waldensian diaconate and the community of Sant'Egidio, owing to the many losses of life at that time. There were hundreds of people losing their life in crossing the Mediterranean. So with the Ministry of Interior Affairs and with the Foreign Ministry, an agreement was signed, whereby in the critical areas, for example, in Lebanon, there's a lot of Syrian refugee camps. They have these people must have certain features, and there is a selection of these families or individuals that could travel with 1,000 visas, let's say. With COVID, unfortunately, this stopped. And it was this year in June that we started having new arrivals. Then we had people from Afghanistan, and now there's a new humanitarian corridor with Libya. So the people coming from Eritrea and Ethiopia too. So it's an agreement between the Interior Affairs Ministry and the Foreign Affairs Ministry and organizations that select eligible people, and the criteria are normally based on emergency levels and opportunities for people to travel, for family to travel and come here in full safety. Unfortunately, now time is almost over, and there is another question. That's a significant question. How can we accept and not assimilate and not to impose getting gratitude from those who arrive, and to avoid experiences that may be unsuccessful? How? That's the most difficult question. Just like in school, they let me answer it. My friends, how can we do? Well, do you always say thank you to your parents? Do you say thank you to your parents? Yes, more or less? More or less? Has COVID-19 stopped you being grateful? Well, I think that when there is love, you just don't have to measure continuously gratitude. Otherwise, we feel just that we are frustrated, and but difficulties and failure is something that we all experience. It can hurt, but it's life. Everything may happen, but you don't have to continue to go on. And I like what Federico said before, when said that they look at towards the same direction. Well, since January, more than 1,500 people lost their lives, and there were even more in the Mediterranean. And before these numbers and the tortures in Libya and the wars in Russia, how can we stand still? How can we do nothing? Well, there's lots of difficulties, of course, but we have to do. Well, we don't have to expect to receive gratitude because, as I said before, we don't have to be presumptuous enough to have the perfect solution. We offer a solution in an equal relationship. So if you love someone, you just hope for their good. And if you love them, you do things that you hope will do good to them, and you have to accept someone that may be different from you. So you try and do it and be successful. If you cannot do it, you feel you're not successful, you try to think about it and see where things could be done differently, because probably the problem was that you try to stick your way of seeing things, your own way to the other person. Well, if you don't like it, then you can try and test yourself on seeing things in a different way. So gratitude can be a trap. Be careful, because when you do voluntary work, you think that maybe the others receiving your help should be grateful just because we stand and walk towards them and do something for them. Well, no. Gratitude is inside all these things. It doesn't have to emerge concretely. It is about respect and having an equal relationship with the other. Well, they all said everything, and what I could add is this. As an idea, all of us are people with their own conscience, with their own identity. So when we meet the other, when we welcome the other, we make ourselves available to them. When we are a person meeting another person, and that they need help, and sometimes we are helped. So we are all individuals with our own freedom, with our own conscience. Being aware of this is important, and of course there are histories, stories and answers that might be divergent, that might be different. There are moments of life that can be very different. So that's the way we are, but there can be alternative ways. And as my colleague said, charity and help should not become a sort of automatic system that always functions in the same way. That would be extremely boring. Thank you so much. We have one last message from Mexico. From Mexico, our friends thank us for sharing these experiences, Anna Maria Grazia and Federico. Some migrant people are arriving to our country, and this workshop is helping us understand empathy towards this situation. So we want to give an applause to our friends from Mexico. We want to really, really thank Anna Maria Grazia and Federico, because they put themselves to the test, and they didn't just describe their experience, but they also opened themselves to their personal experience. I want to thank you all for your attention, for your questions. Some of them could not be read, and we didn't have the time to go through them, but more or less they were similar to other questions, and so they were answered in other way. I hope this workshop has been meaningful to you, and I hope that you can go home with an objective, a name to do something in terms of welcoming. Now, Brother John. As is always the case in these workshops, we have more questions than we had at the beginning. But this is beautiful. Now we have a break of about 45 minutes, and there will be one more workshop on the economy and the environment, and another one is giving one's life to the Lord and the others. So we can get out, take some fresh air, and we'll resume our workshops later. Thank you.